All right, Hamilton Harden.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, hey. I thought we would talk. Say about Ohio State. Ohio
Yeah,
State.
you repping hard today.
That's right. You gotta get it in.
I teach at Ohio State. Don't get it confused.
That's right. This is my Ohio State office. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that we could talk about nervousness or anxiety related to performance. Maybe I'll lead off on this. For me personally, so the first thing is, I think that anxiety and nerves is totally normal. With all my students, it manifests itself differently, and some students experience more intense, manifestations, more intense symptoms from being nervous. Me personally, what happens to me is when I'm nervous, I tend to rush.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to play on top of the beat. And when I'm nervous, my body burns up all of the moisture and I become dehydrated. And once I become dehydrated, I start to experience, especially with my embouchure, the inability to control my embouchure.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes, it becomes like really, like, wait a minute, I know I can play, I can play longer than 4 beats on a particular note. It starts getting really out of control.
You start to get that quiver?
Yeah. It quivers, and plus it's like extreme, it's like muscle failure.
Yeah.
I start to experience muscle failure in my chops.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. I don't ever get tired.
Yeah.
Because I'm dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I have the same thing that anybody else has, when you start to get nervous, stuff starts to, it starts to seem like, you have less time to do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that makes you feel like you have to say more or do more, in a smaller amount of time,
right?
Which exacerbates the sense that you're rushing, that stuff's on top of the beat, all of that. It's all that kind. And I also tend to, if I'm nervous, I tend to overplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll play too much stuff.
Yeah.
So because I know that, I have found ways to counteract that. So when I'm nervous, I drink a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I feel like I'm getting anxious, I drink a lot of water. And since I know that my tendency is to play a little bit on top of the beat, which is normal for people that get nervous, I intentionally lay back and really focus on locking in.
Mm-hmm.
And then because my tendency is to overplay, I really reduce and simplify what it is that I'm going to play.
Mm-hmm.
And those things seem to work for me.
Yeah.
How about you, Hamilton Harden?
Yeah. Okay. So nervousness and fear are one side of the spectrum. Anxiety is another side of the spectrum. So an example of that is if you're walking down the street and a car comes and you see it out of your peripheral vision and your blood starts racing, your adrenaline kicks in and you jump, that's fear and nervousness. In an analogy form, I guess. Anxiety is after the car has already passed. Now every time you walk down the street, you're like frozen. You can barely function.
Yeah.
And on the musical stage, I think I've experienced both. I think the first is actually pretty healthy because you generally, I mean, the way your body works, adrenaline kicks in and you have a more focused outlook, and your body's responses are just more on the edge, and I think it sort of puts you in your A game. Mm-hmm. The second, I've been in situations where I'm on a quote unquote big gig, and the gig isn't guaranteed to me. And so I've been on a gig, and when I look on the stage, on the side of the stage, there's the manager, there's the whoever the agent is, and they're critiquing everything about my performance. And I froze up, like sticks have slipped out of my hand. I sat at the piano, and like I literally, I don't know, like muscle memory just fails. I just freeze. And that's from anxiety. Both are connected to pride in a sense. And I think more specifically, you have to start to analyze what the root of your anxiety is. Now, when I was at The Ohio State University, I noticed in my saxophone juries, and I noticed in our, what do you call it when all the saxophones get together?
Studio class.
Studio class. Whenever I had to perform something and it was a written piece that everyone had a copy of and that everyone else was learning and they could identify what my mistake was, anxiety kicked in. Yep. Like I looked at the page, but all I saw was I glazed over the page. I couldn't focus on the notes or rhythms. So I really had to rely on my memory and my ear at that point, which in some cases just didn't work because if they're long pieces, I just can't remember everything. And then, for me, I realized that when it comes to written music, anxiety kicks in for me. If it's something that I can't improvise my way out of, then all of a sudden I get cornered. And I feel cornered. And so I remember I took a performance anxiety class at The Ohio State University. It was with Professor Jim Hill.
Yeah.
And it was with somebody from the psychology department. I can't remember his name, but he was really good. No offense to him if he should watch this, but that was about 10 years ago, so I can't remember. But anyway, actually over 10 years. But it was really helpful. He gave some good tips. Breathing. Breathing is a big part of it. Like you say, noticing whatever your body does. If it dehydrates, overhydrate. If you tend to, do one thing, overcompensate on the other way. So just, it keeps on the focus. And then really, for me, I feel more confident in fear and anxiety go the more prepared I am.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of it. So if I know something's coming up, I know I have to over practice to where should fear and anxiety kick in, I can rely on muscle memory and micro and macro muscle memory. Just all those things sort of kick in because I've practiced it out. And generally when I practice it out and I go in confident, like I know this, I know every dynamic, I know every articulation, every slur, I just know this piece, then generally the whole anxiety thing goes. But the opposite direction, when I don't know everything and I'm like, well, I can go in there and just, sight read it out. Even if it's on the easier side, if I haven't prepared it, it's a mental block that kicks in. And so, it gets better over time, I think, because you go through enough embarrassing situations where, you just sort of start to correct over time. But it's a beast.
I think that there's like a metaphor here, for, Christian folks, for people of faith.
Mm-hmm.
There's the whole walking by faith and not by sight, the whole really trusting in the Lord and leaning on him, that whole confidence, developing confidence in God, having walked with the Lord, not knowing what's going to happen all the time, and being able to look back and seeing there's a track record of the Lord's hand on our life. And although like in the moment, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. At best, this is foggy. That could be a cliff over there. It could be the way I'm supposed to go. Same thing, I think, with the whole performance anxiety thing, or nervousness or fear. And I've noticed that. So for me, like I always tell my students that over preparation is a powerful remedy for nerves. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get nervous, or that you won't have a little bit of anxiety, be a little bit anxious, have a little nervous energy. But by being over prepared, and also by sort of knowing what your tendencies are when you get nervous, you can kind of counteract that. Now, one thing that's become like a big thing, especially amongst classical musicians, is so-called performance-enhancing drugs that are suppressing, that suppress the flow of adrenaline. So when we feel anxiousness and all that, that's adrenaline. Our body's pumping too much adrenaline for us to control. So, adrenaline speeds up your metabolism, burns all the water in your body. You get cotton mouth, dry mouth. You're jittery and all that. That's all adrenaline. That's affecting that. So what's being done, and it's kind of unfortunate, is a lot of teachers are counseling their students to take beta blockers. And so they take these beta blockers, and then so they don't feel anything. They can just play, and it's like they're sitting in the practice room. They're not aware. I mean, it does. Oh, hey, I got an audience. Okay, fine. I'm doing a jury. Who cares?
Wow.
All right. Well, let me just get this head out. Okay. All right. Just played it perfectly. All right. That's good. All right. Let me go on over here. And that's kind of unfortunate, because, see, to me, if I'm not at least a little nervous, at least a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of nervous energy, it just tells me I don't care about what I'm doing. I want to feel like I care about what I'm doing. I want to experience the moment, and being nervous is part of it. And it's okay. It's like, it's totally normal. I tell my students this all the time. If you're not nervous at all, because, we have studio class and students, they have to play for the class, and there's no harder thing to do than to play for your peers playing the same instrument, working on the same material as you said.
Right.
So we play, in that setting, we have combo studio recitals where the jazz faculty are sitting at a table literally right in front of the stage and are writing stuff down as the students are performing.
Right.
Juries and scholarship competitions and all like this. And the fact is like, you can't hide from it. You just have to put yourself into as many situations as possible.
Yeah.
Learn what your tendencies are. But, you know, I tell my students, like, look, if you come in here and you feel nothing, you're not nervous at all, that means you're a sociopath. And that's another kind of issue. I don't know if I want to be around you too much.
Yeah.
If you're not experiencing some sort of, you know, anxiety.
Emotional.
Yeah. If your heart rate at least is not rising just a little bit, I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I want to know that you're a human being and not some cyborg or something. You know, you know, that's, or that you some kind of axe murderer.
Yeah.
Just happened to be playing saxophone.
Right. Axe murderers could be artistic too.
That's right. That's right.
Oh man.
So I always tell.
I mean, essentially, especially depending on the situation, people don't realize for musicians, and I guess in the same way athletes, like if you do like the 10-meter hurdle or something, you train for months and months and months for a 40-second period.
That's a good point.
And so for, you know, for a performance, like if you're doing, you know, a solo flute performance, I don't know, with an octet or something, and it features you, you can practice and practice and practice for a month, you know, hours and hours, days and days, and the piece is only 3 minutes long. And if you, I think for me, the nervousness comes in. If I screw this 3 minutes up, all that months and months of practicing was for loss, because I might not ever play this song again.
Huh.
And so I think that comes part of the performance anxiety too. Even when you do practice and practice and practice, there's always thoughts that can creep in. What I've started to do that helped a lot with my anxiety and my nervousness is find, and it takes time, find thoughts that work for me.
Yeah.
That kind of almost repeat as a mantra in my head that block out all that other crap.
I was just about to go there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, so I have one student in particular in my studio, and I've had a number of students that have this issue. But he's a talented kid. He's a good kid. He's a hard worker. He's like over prepared. Shows up to lessons. Is always ready to go.
Yeah.
But he's a nervous talker.
Yeah.
You know, and it comes out of his instrument too. So it's like he can play all the stuff. He's got all the facility to be able to play it, but it's almost like a stuttering that happens in his playing.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't stutter when he speaks.
Yeah.
He's a nervous talker, so he talks too much. He volunteers too much information. He says, you know, too much stuff that's like, look, man, you know, don't say any of that, because that just like totally colored the performance. Like he'll play for studio class, and then the first thing he says after he you know gets the horn out of his mouth, you know,
starts apologizing.
Yeah, he starts apologizing for what happened. You know, and it's like, dude, just, you know, let's take that off the tape.
Nobody even noticed half of that, what you're apologizing for.
Exactly. So what I've been talking to him about, and what he started doing last semester, is I didn't dictate what it was going to be, but I suggested that he come up with a mantra. It could be a prayer, a mantra that I use, which is I'm totally ripping this off and totally borrowing this from early church monastics. It's the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And I do it in connection with breathing. So I'll breathe in. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. You know, and I'll either speak it or I'll just think it.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, the early church monastics, it became to the point, where Paul says, pray without ceasing.
Yeah.
What he was talking about actually was the Jesus prayer. That's what he was referring to. And he was referring to a cyclical and regular reciting of this prayer as a meditation, even while doing other things. I remember when saying the pray without ceasing, that whole business. I remember thinking, well, wait a minute. If I'm supposed to bow my head and close my eyes every time I'm praying, then I can't pray without ceasing.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? What are
Right.
we actually talking about here? And so when I did further investigation, I found that that's actually what they were talking about. It's the Jesus prayer, and he was talking about this sort of meditation that's happening even while having conversations with other people.
Mm.
You still have this thing going on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
It's a calming kind of thing that's reminding you of where your actual place is, that we need a savior, that we, all of that. But while having a conversation with someone else, it's just a leveling kind of thing. So I didn't stipulate what the meditation was going to be to my student, but I just said, hey, you should come up with some kind of meditation, some kind of positive thought process that you repeat before you practice, before you rehearse, before any performance. Because you want to try to level the playing field. You want to try to create as many things in common about practicing, rehearsing, and performing as possible. Because you can actually sort of trick yourself into thinking that you're just doing the same thing. Oh, hey, I do this before I practice. My expectation is for what happens when I practice to happen when I'm performing.
Yeah.
And I also gave him some breathing exercises. So the whole thing where you take a deep breath, hold it in for 10 seconds, let it out. That whole thing, breathing in, positive energy, breathing out negative energy, that whole thing. And I do a series of stretches, and people see me doing this a lot. And part of this is because sometimes I feel some tightness in this area.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to reduce the sort of lactic acid buildup in this part of my body. But part of it also is like I need to do something positive with my hands. Mm-hmm. If I start getting nervous, especially, it's better to be doing something that's productive and that's actually helping me than to start doing something that's destructive, counterproductive, and or start, saying stuff or thinking about stuff that's not helping. Mm-hmm. So I do some stretches. I do these in particular like this. I'll stretch each finger. Yeah. I do this business. I shake my arms out. Mm-hmm. This whole thing, this is pretty effective for me. Shaking my arms out. The whole thing with doing some things with the neck. My philosophy on music, on the body, the mind, the spirit. Okay, so we can have these conversations about components of the spirit or attributes of the spirit, attributes of the soul, attributes of the body. Mm-hmm. But those are only really for conversation, because in actual practice, it's a much more holistic kind of thing. Right. That is, whatever is affecting your body is affecting your spirit and your soul. Right. Whatever is affecting your soul is affecting your body and your spirit. Whatever is affecting your spirit is affecting your soul and your body. So there's not any real separation. You can intellectually talk about this separation, but there is no real separation. And so all of these kinds of things actually help each other. So things that you can do with your body are going to help you to calm you down. Mm-hmm. Things that you can do with your mind, meditations that you can do with your mind will help to calm your body down, help to calm some of the anxiety, help to suppress some of that adrenaline flow. Yeah. So that stuff so he started doing those things before our lessons, before he practices, before he rehearses, before performances.
Yeah.
And I started to notice pretty quickly a difference. He's much more at peace. He's much calmer. And then his performance level is much more consistently at a high level.
Yeah.
And so, rather than counseling him to take beta blockers, I gave him
that's a new one. I haven't heard that. Heard of that.
It's like a regular thing, and it's very prevalent.
Wow.
It's very prevalent. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's going on at Ohio State.
Right. I understand. Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that necessarily. It could be, but I don't know.
Right.
But I know at a lot of conservatories around the country, it's a pretty regular thing that. Now, okay. Now, let's give space for this though, because some students need that. Sometimes there's physiological issues that are just causing a ridiculous amount of adrenaline flow that's not controllable. Thoughts or bodily motions. It's just there's something actually wrong physiologically.
Right.
You have to do something. And what I'm talking about is people that experience like extreme stage fright. They have powerful manifestations. They're shaking.
About to pass out.
Yeah. All of that kind of stuff. Now that's a different class of things.
Right.
If somebody watching this video is experiencing that, then that's not normal. That's not within the regular range of nervousness. And you really should seek a doctor to see if there's a way to help with that, because there are things that can help that.
Right.
But for everyone else, if you feel like, I remember like having conversations with certain folks, about nerves, and, a certain percentage of people will tell you, well, I don't get nervous. I never get nervous. Man, I haven't been nervous for 25 years, And so what that tells me is one of two things. Now, they could be a sociopath. That's which is not necessarily a negative thing. We always associate that with some kind of negative thing. But there are certain careers and certain jobs where having that ability to suppress adrenaline at will and emotion is actually very beneficial. Like it would be pretty positive for a surgeon to have that ability.
Yeah, I do not want my surgeon shaking, passing out in the middle of my head.
So it's not.
Oh man!
But so my point here. Okay, so what was I talking about?
In some cases where it's needed.
Yeah. If you have, if you're having powerful bodily manifestations, there's something that you can do. Yeah. Contacting a doctor is important. I remember having conversations with people sometimes, and they would tell me they were having no, they don't get nervous at all. And like I said, so number one, they could be sociopaths. But actually, it's more likely that either the second thing is true, that they're actually lying to you. Yeah. That they're nervous like everybody else, which is probably 95% of the time when people say that. Because I think people think that admitting that they get nervous is some kind of sign of weakness. Yeah. It's like, they don't want you to think like they're like everybody else. Yeah.
And those are the ones that when they go home suffer from the deepest depression if something doesn't go right, because it's all tied to pride and you can I never get nervous, and they can put on a face, and then inside, and when they get home they replay everything and they go into the deepest and when I say I've been that guy before. I got this, give me some sticks, I got this, do the gig, and then I go home because I'm very aware. I'm very aware of every mistake when it happens,
Oh yeah.
And I like keep a log. Which is something in my later years mistakes happen, let them go, keep moving. But I just didn't function that well like that. And I kept every mistake, get in the green room, and it gets dark.
Yeah. No.
Why am I playing? I shouldn't have been a musician. I suck. No one ever. And you get all this crap, and it's all negative and there's the obvious pride, which is I'm the greatest person in the world, and then there's the other side of pride that says that you focus on yourself so much in the negative that it's all about you and all. Yeah, insecurity. Yeah, I'll never. I was. And you just always focusing on yourself. Yeah. They're both pride.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I like that you brought that up. Thanks for bringing that up, because that's a distinction that I like to bring out.
Yeah.
With folks, people think that they're for being like insecure and constantly sort of pointing out their own faults and all like that. That they're somehow, the anti-pride. They're not proud. They're humble. But it's actually a false humility. It's not humble at all. And the other thing to mention is that confidence is not the opposite of humility.
Right.
That's not what's happening. So in order to be confident, you don't have to be, a jerk and a proud dude. You can be confident and still be humble.
Yeah.
And then this whole thing can easily go into that whole perfectionist, whole conversation about being a perfectionist and how, I remember going through, I went through a period where I was getting to that point where I was almost starting to judge people that were giving me compliments. Like, you didn't hear all those mistakes? Mm-hmm. Are you for real? Like, I almost started to judge, like, their ability to judge if music was good or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I was losing respect for people complimenting. Mm-hmm. I almost got to that place.
Yeah.
And I had to, when I got there, I was like, you know what? That's not what this is about. None of this is about that at all.
Yeah.
And who am I to totally diminish and rob someone of a musical experience, of a spiritual experience based on my stuff?
Yeah.
Because once I play the music, it's not mine anymore.
Yeah.
It's for it, see, the thing about the arts, about music, is once you share it, it's not yours anymore.
Right, right.
It's not yours anymore. So however people experience it, you could have a performance where you felt terrible about the performance, where you were like nervous and stuff wasn't happening the way you wanted it to, where something got out of sync with the track that you're playing with, or just stuff that just seems like the worst possible, dead bodies on the street.
Yeah.
It's just like the train got off the tracks and massive wreck and just carnage and destruction everywhere. I mean, that's in our head. That's what happened. But to the audience, they had like a powerful, spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And then they come up to express their appreciation, and then they get vibed.
Yeah.
They get vibed by the person that was. It's like, come on now.
Yeah.
That's not right. That ain't.
Yeah.
Plus, that's a surefire way to guarantee that person is not coming back to your shows.
Right.
It's just yeah. So it's real easy for that stuff to turn into something that's not healthy. And
some of my greatest experiences were with Chris Howes and the trio we had with it was sometimes trio, sometimes quartet. Me, Chris Howes, Cedric Easton, and then sometime Dean Hewlett or other bass players would join us. But we would do these tours, and the experience was very deep. And I know that sounds really vague. That's the best way I could put it. They're really meaningful, deep experiences on stage. And Chris's music is sometimes very difficult to play. And we would butcher the music sometimes. But that was a good experience for me because Chris, the understanding we had, like, we all respected each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we respect each other's abilities and and so there was never any need to prove. He didn't have to prove stuff to me. I had to prove myself to them. It was like we just had a mutual respect thing. So that knocked out a whole lot of I got to impress these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he was just very, he had a lot of grace for when I did butcher his music. But the main thing that we did not compromise on is losing the emotional connection, spiritual connection to what we're playing. And then, to your point, a lot of times when we butchered the music to the point where it's like, oh my God, we didn't even, we didn't end on the same place. The audience, you look out and people are in tears, and it means something totally different to them, and they felt something totally different than what I may have felt on a performance aspect. But from a emotional connection to what I was playing, they felt that. And so I think you bring up a good point when you said that the music that you're given is not just for you, it's a gift to the people that you're playing it to, and that you are actually a conduit of something that's way more than you and your performance.
Yeah.
That was a tangent, but
no, but it's all the same stuff. What we're talking about is all the same stuff.
Yeah.
The anxiety thing, the nerves thing, the fear associated with performance and all of that. I think if you put that stuff in perspective and just try to get it off of yourself and try to get it into the arena of, this is a gift that I'm giving to others. It's not about me. It's about what's happening. It's about the experience that this music is creating. It's about the community that this music is developing. It's about all of that stuff. And that stuff is so much greater than if I'm getting nervous when I play, and how, I can't play that double time lick that I worked out because I was nervous.
Right.
That's like such a small issue compared to the real, perspective. So I think all of that stuff is related, and having a way to contextualize these kinds of things. It's unfortunate that a lot of performers are not honest about experiencing nervousness. And what I've tried to do with my students is I tell people, I get nervous. I get nervous every time I play. I'm nervous. Look, if I'm not at least a little bit nervous, I'm worried.
Mm-hmm.
I really am worried, because it just means I don't care.
Yeah.
And I care. I really, I profoundly care.
Mm-hmm.
And I love music. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. And every time I get an opportunity to play it, I think I owe it to the audience to be at least a little nervous.
Right.
I think about that whole thing differently, and am willing to admit that I get nervous. I do. I get nervous. And I realize also that the amount that I'm nervous seems to be directly proportionate to the time investment and my perception of the magnitude of what it is that I'm doing. Yeah. So I'm working on a doctorate, as you know, I'm done with all my coursework. I finished my recitals. But I remember the first recital in particular. Now, I was nervous for the second one too.
Right.
But the first recital in particular, I hadn't played classical saxophone. I had not done a recital for 15 years, 14 years. I had not played much classical saxophone at all. Mm-hmm. And then definitely had not performed publicly. And then, of course, the music that I chose was a bunch of really, really challenging music that has to really line up a certain way. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, man, before that recital, I drank a 32 ounce of Powerade. Then I drank.
I didn't know where the story was going. I thought he was like, I drank and I drank.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, wow.
I got totally drunk. And so,
right.
And then I popped beta blockers.
Right. I ain't feel nothing.
No, I drank a 32 ounce of Powerade. I drank 4 20-ounce bottled waters. That was before the recital. That was within like an hour and a half of the recital. And I could tell my body was just burning this water up like it was nothing.
Right.
And then I drank another whole bottled water during the recital, which was about 50 minutes of music.
Yeah.
And so, I was nervous. Of course I was nervous. Yeah. I had a lot invested. I'd been driving back and forth to Cincinnati 3 days a week, 12 hours in the car.
Yeah.
Taking all these classes and doing all this stuff. And a recital is pretty important. And you want that thing to go well. Yes, I'm going to be nervous.
Yeah.
Of course I'm going to be nervous. And there's nothing wrong with that. If I wasn't nervous, then something was wrong. Then we'd be
right.
Right. And, and I think about this too. Like, I think I owe it to my wife, who had, made all these adjustments to be able to make it so that I could go back to school. Mm-hmm. I think I owe it to her.
Yeah.
To be at least a little nervous.
Right. Yep.
So it's okay. It's all right.
Yep.
It's okay. It's a strange thing. And then even the same thing like with interviews.
Yeah.
I've been in interview situations where that's not like look, interviews are like kind of like antiseptic and like not part of the real world, clinical and cold, and especially if you want something. Like if you want a job, you want a certain position, and you're trying to say the right things, but you don't want to, you can't seem like you want it. You gotta like kind of you want it, but you can't. I don't want it that much though.
Right.
You have to like. So even that whole thing in like being in a panel interview and people being there and everybody's positive, it could be a positive thing, but it's just like the setting itself. It's just like not a normal setting.
Yeah.
And so if you want something, if something matters to you, you're gonna get nervous, and it's okay to get nervous. And now I don't get overly nervous.
Right.
Confident. I'm confident in what I feel like I can bring to the table. Mm-hmm. But it's normal. Like you were talking about that sort of interview on the bandstand.
Yeah.
And I've been in those situations too, where you want this gig.
Yeah.
And this gig could like be
could lead to change my life. Yeah.
That's right. And and in those situations where something didn't happen that worked out, it didn't work out right, and I didn't end up getting the job I wanted, or I didn't end up getting the playing opportunity that I wanted. When I look back at those times, those situations actually set me up perfectly to get the next thing that I really wanted.
Sure. And that's, I think, as whether it's interviews, when you're speaking in front of, between songs, uh, or doing a TV interview or something. I think the important thing is at the core of who you are, always speaking and playing out of a place of truth. And so you have to make sure whatever, and this is, I know we're running out of time, so this is a whole nother tangent that I'm not going to get on, but what helps with the nervousness and anxiety for me is coming from a core place and a core, I don't really think, I'm not really a mantra person. I'm more of a conceptual, what's the core of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And for me, it's no matter what the situation, good or bad, as a Christian, I know it's under God's sovereign plan.
Yeah.
So my performance on the stage tonight, it's part of his plan, whatever the outcome, and it's not going to, I can't make my life happen. I can't make the opportunities happen. In a sense, I mean, okay, I'm not going to get on a tangent. But anyway, to sum it up, the core of it is I'm not going to let this totally make me freeze up. Rather, I'm going to enjoy the situation. I'm playing in front of, I don't know how many thousand people right now. So I'm going to feed off of what I'm feeling, perform the music that I prepared, that the MP3s that were sent to me, or the music that was sheet music that was given to me. And I'm going to enjoy this moment because this is what it's about. And like, I have to, sometimes I have to convince myself that it is the truth. But then once I got to the point to where that is my core of my thinking, the nervousness like goes away. I remember 2015, I played in Nigeria with an artist, and there were 650,000 people in attendance. There was no rehearsal, and this particular artist had like 7 records out. And so the manager sent me a Dropbox link of all the records, and he sort of likes to stick to these top 30 songs off these 7 records, but he sort of likes to call it on the spot so you don't know. And it was a nerve-wracking experience. But then I sort of had to do what I just was telling you, and I had to look at the moment. I'm looking at this sea of people while I'm trying to get my in-ear monitors together and all that stuff. It's just like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this moment. If I mess up, because I'd like to play for this guy again, it's just not meant to be. But I'm just going to put my best foot forward. And to sum it up, the concert went really well. And I enjoyed the moment. There was
it went really well, and you still haven't been called back.
Yeah, I haven't been called back yet, but but life is still good. I never heard from him again. But actually, the funny thing is that's true. I never got called from him again.
That's a whole nother. Yeah,
that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother thing. So,
but but I just, it's not that I don't care, because I care.
Yeah.
But I'm shifting what I care about. I don't care about their judgment of me. I care more about enjoying what I'm. Okay, I think it's a better balance, because I do care about what their evaluation of what I'm doing is, but I don't place my entire existence.
Right. And you have a balance. You have more of a balanced outlook on what's happening.
Right.
I remember. We'll have to end on this, but that whole thing about playing for yourself.
Yeah.
As opposed to like playing for the audience. Playing for yourself as opposed to playing. So I had adopted this sort of disposition about performance where I'm always playing for myself and playing for God, and I don't worry about how the audience experiences it, because I'm trying to be genuine, and either they're going to dig me or they're not going to dig me.
Yeah.
And so I've sort of modified that somewhat because I think that the audience deserves a concern from the artist. I just don't want that concern from the artist, from this artist, to become the primary factor.
Yeah.
You know, like when that happens, then it's like you'll play anything, you'll do anything for applause.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be concerned about the audience, but we shouldn't sort of change who we are and our identity and all that kind of stuff just so that the audience is pleased.
Right.
Because first of all, you can't maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you talk about being depressed, you know, and unfulfilled. You know, it's like I can't feel fulfilled unless I'm doing what I was created to do and playing what I was created to play in the way that I was created to present it, and my personality is apparent to the audience. But I think those are like the three things to be concerned about is, am I playing stuff that is personally fulfilling? Am I doing something that's honoring God? And how is the audience experiencing how this is presented?
Right.
And if those are the three things, obviously getting along with the bandmates and communicating and having a real experience. But if those are the things, then I think, you know, then I think it works out. And sometimes you're not meant to play with everybody.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not meant to have certain kinds of opportunities. And that's okay. Because if we have this bigger view of what it is that we're doing,
right,
it's all under God's control. And no matter what happens, even when we make mistakes, he's gonna guide and protect. He's gonna get us to where we need to be.
Right.
Because he sees our heart, he sees what we're trying to do, and he wants to. You know, I as a father,
mm-hmm.
and I know you know this. You know, you have twice as many as I have. but as a father, even when my son is throwing a tantrum, is acting up, and everything else, I know what he desires.
Yeah.
I know what he wants. And more than anything, I want him to have what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything, I want, you know, so long as that thing doesn't hurt him, I want him to have what he wants.
Right.
He will do what he wants. And so much more, you know, God's love for us.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's like if we keep that as the central thing, the rest of it just, it just works. It's just, it's okay.
Yep.
All right, man. I will see you later, man.
Yes, sir.
Great talk today, man. Great talk.
All right, brother.
All right, I see you.